Hi, I'm Joshua Brustein. I'm the editor of the technology section at BusinessWeek magazine. And I have with me here today Anjali Sud, who is the CEO of Vimeo, which many of you probably know as sort of the artsy alternative to YouTube. But Anjali actually, over the last couple of years, has overseen a major pivot of the business to focus much more on video tools for creators, from small businesses to very large enterprises. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that transformation. We're going to talk a little bit about Vimeo's upcoming public it's going to start trading publicly next week. And just hear a little bit about, how we got here and what we might see going ahead. So Anjali, first of all, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Josh. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. And I was hoping maybe you could start with just set the scene for us a little bit. We're going to talk about the changes that you brought to the company, but just tell us a little bit about where Vimeo was at the beginning of this transformation. As I mentioned, I think a lot of people do see the brand in comparison to YouTube, and that's how they've experienced it in the past.
Yeah, so I like to say Vimeo is both a 16-year-old video platform and a 3-year-old enterprise software startup. And that's because for most of Vimeo's journey in life, for over a decade, we really were the sort of ad-free, high-quality alternative to YouTube. And it was really only up until about 2017 that we decided, actually, rather than compete with YouTube, there's a bigger market opportunity for Vimeo, and that's to serve every business in the world, regardless of their size, budget, or expertise, with tools and software to be able to use professional quality video. And so we sort of embarked on that pivot in 2017. We spent the last few years really building, innovating, reorienting our platform to be able to serve businesses who now, especially since the pandemic, are looking to use video more in how they communicate. And we've seen incredible traction, momentum, and success, and so we're doubling down. And as you mentioned, we're looking to become our own public company next week. And really the goal there is to have more focus and attention and being able to just invest more in this strategy.
Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of discussion and frankly concern over the last couple of years about companies like YouTube basically being too large to compete with. You redirected your company away from direct competition with YouTube. Is it right to see this as another illustration of just how difficult these enormous social media platforms are to go up against directly?
I think they're separate considerations. Certainly that's a whole topic around social media platforms, but fundamentally for Vimeo, the way we thought about our strategy is we want to help businesses succeed. And for them to succeed, they want to reach their audiences across platforms. So of course they want to put video content on YouTube, but they also want to put that content on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, their website, blogs, marketplaces. And so we sort of saw it more as, if we really want to align with the best interests of our customers, we need to be distribution agnostic. We need to help these businesses get their content everywhere. And those are the types of tools we've built. And so, I like our position. I like where we sit, but mostly I think it's because we're really aligning our incentives and our goals with the success of our customers.
Mm-hmm. So tell me how you got started.
Me personally, or
yeah, when you started it on the pivot, what was kind of the first move, and how did you pitch it to your bosses?
Sure. So I joined Vimeo as a director of marketing at a time when we were actually pursuing a slightly different strategy. We were actually looking at investing in original content, thinking about trying to compete with Netflix. And so I joined the company. I was running marketing, and we didn't yet have anything to market because we hadn't acquired all the content. So I just was spending time with a group of people at the company looking at our users and looking at the trends that were happening in our own user base and started to notice organically a lot more businesses were coming to the platform and uploading video content that, previously it was mostly filmmakers uploading feature-length, documentaries. And now more and more we're seeing small businesses and large businesses uploading video for social media or for their website. And so it really just sort of internally, a group of people internally, we all sort of saw this opportunity that, wait a minute, maybe there's a bigger market here and Vimeo can uniquely serve that market. And so, what sort of interestingly happened, it doesn't happen that often in companies, but we sort of convinced our investors to parallel path the two strategies. So I was given a small team, it was about 50 people, product, engineering, support, marketing, to go and try and pursue this strategy and see if it would work. And we spent a year building. We launched a new software plan called Vimeo Business. It was very sort of MVP early, but we saw incredible traction. And after a year of seeing that traction, the company decided, you know what, let's go all in on this strategy. It's, the original content play, the sort of battle, streaming wars were heating up. And so kind of both things happened at the same time. And so we decided to double down on the SaaS strategy, and IAC, our parent company, promoted me internally to CEO to run the company from there.
So were you basically competing with the content side of your own company, and was there pushback, or what, it seems like you kind of set off a bake-off to a certain degree?
It's interesting. I wouldn't say it was competitive, but for sure, there were a lot of people at the company who were energized and excited and were getting passionate about this idea of, instead of focusing on the viewers and the original content, going back to Vimeo's roots and being creator first. We had this mantra internally around that. And really, we were just expanding the definition of content creators. So it wasn't just video professionals and filmmakers, but also businesses. And so I think there was a lot of momentum internally around that. And so I remember when we actually announced that the pivot, and we announced that all these things were going to change, generally the sentiment across the company was really positive, because I think people felt like actually the strategy was more aligned with our roots, and also one we were just uniquely positioned to win at.
Mm-hmm. Was there a moment of no return, a moment where you realized this is actually going to be the entirety of the company instead of my own side project?
Yes, but I would say that moment was when I found out that we were pivoting and that I was going to be put in the CEO seat. I never really considered that IAC, our parent company, would be so decisive, frankly, in kind of saying, okay, if this isn't working and this is, boom, let's just rip off the Band-Aid. And kudos to them. I think there's so many companies, we're in a fast-paced industry in video and in tech in general, and it's really hard sometimes to actually acknowledge something's not working and to really quickly and wholly pivot. And I actually think we did a really good job of that. The day that we announced the pivot, we had a new vision, mission, strategy for the company. Everybody knew, what that meant for them and how their work was going to change. And, I look back at those first few months, and of course, I wish we had moved even faster. But I do think it was a fairly sort of all-in move. There wasn't a lot of hedging or optionality. And I think that was important for us because this market is so large, and we had to go into it saying we are 100% committed to succeeding.
Mm-hmm. And so tell me a little bit about how you're now at the moment where things will change again when you go public next week. And what do you expect to be different about the company once it hits the public markets and spins out from IAC?
Fundamentally, in terms of what we're building, our mission, and how we're operating, really nothing should change. As I said, we're just doubling down. That being said, there are a couple of things I think about. In particular, just making sure that as a public company, we stay long-term focused. I think about this market in terms of decades, not years. And once you go public, you suddenly have a stock price that's moving, and you have quarterly earnings, and you have movement and sort of noise monetize every day. And so, I think it is an important thing for us as a company. It's my job to make sure that we do stay focused on the long term, and that that's something that our employees are encouraged and set up to think about, and also with investors externally and with our board. This is, as I said, it's a large market. We think $70 billion market for every business in the world to use video, and we have just a teeny tiny sliver of that today. So it really is important that when we think about the investments, when we make decisions, we have that long-term lens. So that's one. The other one I'd say is Vimeo's always been scrappy. Even as we've scaled, we've acted like a startup in our culture and our ethos. And I think that's something really important, that, as you grow, you get more layers, you get potential bureaucracy. And we're raising, we've raised capital. We're going public to speed up, not to slow down. And so there is a lot there that I think about, my team thinks about, in how we operationalize and work internally, sort of this real desire to stay scrappy.
Mm-hmm. So you came up within IAC, and now you're spinning out. What changes with that relationship? I mean, I know they have the building. I don't know if are you moving out of home? Are you moving out of your house, or?
I think at some point, but that's all stuff we're figuring out. Certainly the relationship changes, but in many ways, I think we've gotten a lot of incredible benefits from IAC that I hope continues. I share this phrase that I think is really accurate for how IAC thinks, and it's something that I think we think about, which is impatience on execution, patience on vision. It's something that IAC has always kind of really inculcated in us, and I think you'll see us sort of take that culture from IAC and use it at Vimeo. And really what that means is, we are focused on our vision, and we're unwavering and committed to that and thinking in the long term, but we're also going to act with urgency, because this market is now and the businesses need video now. And so it's sort of, how do you balance those two things? And I think we've done it well over the last few years with IAC's support. And so that's something that I think will continue for sure.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about who your customers are. I know you have a large amount of customers, some of whom are premium and some of whom are not paying and just using the service for free. Can you just talk a little bit about what that looks like now and how that might change over time?
Yeah, Vimeo, we're a pretty classic freemium SaaS model. So we have 200 million users on the platform who are just engaging for free, and they are all types, video professionals, businesses of all sizes. And then within that, we have about 1.5 million paying customers. And they range from the mom and pop shop to the growth stage startup to the Fortune 100 company. We've shared that, in the last few quarters, our enterprise business, so large organizations using video, that business is really exploding. Our enterprise revenues up 100% year on year for the last few quarters. And we're seeing companies like Starbucks, Amazon, Rite Aid, Deloitte, New York Times, all sort of using video now in ways that they weren't before. So I think increasingly that sort of, if you look at our user base, we continue to sort of increasingly grow the percentage of businesses on the platform. And then if you look at the sizes and the sort of sophistication level, it's very broad. And we believe that every business, regardless of their budget and size and expertise, should be able to use professional quality video. So you'll see us when we launch new features and products, we're not just building for the most sophisticated customers. We're really thinking about how to radically simplify the access to these tools so that really any business can use it.
Mm-hmm. What are the ways that that businesses are using videos in changing ways? Are they making just more like video kind of commercial and consumer communication? Is this for internal communications, or kind of where's that growing the most?
So we're seeing video and Vimeo being used in really two different ways. One is using video to communicate externally with your customers. And there, it's really, every business that has a website or social media account or marketplace listing wants to use video the same way that they've been using image and text, because video is more engaging, you can get higher clicks, it's prioritized more in social feeds. And if you actually look, for most businesses, it's hard to create like professionally produced, branded, 15-second videos for Instagram. You want to do that several times a week. And it doesn't, historically, the only way to do that would be you'd have to hire a crew and spend tens of thousands of dollars on a budget. And so we've boiled all of that down into a simple mobile app called Vimeo Create. It helps any business create content in a matter of minutes that's professionally produced, and that they can edit and then distribute. And so that's one, I would say, very key example of what we see businesses do. We also see businesses doing things like live streaming events. Obviously, since the pandemic, that's been really important. And then there's the internal, using video to communicate internally with your stakeholders, with your employees. We see a lot of demand for that. People are using Vimeo to securely live stream their town halls, their company town halls. They're using Vimeo to train and onboard employees. Amazon is using us for their customer support team, for customer education videos. And these are all just some of the areas. I think the bigger theme is that we're seeing video proliferate in all the ways that businesses communicate. The same way email and chat have become such cornerstones of how businesses communicate, we really think video is going to touch every point of the organization. So if you think about, every department in a company, you think about every team in a company, they should be using video more. And you'll see us expand our tool set and our use cases pretty substantially this year to better serve more of these teams and departments.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about how you have experienced the change in media consumption habits during the pandemic, how that's affected your business, and which things you think are here to stay, and which things might kind of revert back to normal as people re-enter their offices and go back to whatever normal life will look like.
I think, I would say overall, I think the pandemic has changed behavior fundamentally. We are all now used to, being in front of the camera, both the sort of the talent and the creator. And I think all of our expectations for engaging, professional, real-time, visual content, that's not gonna go away. And I think we see it in our business. We see that the demand from the pandemic, it has really sort of, it's sort of settling at a clear, elevated new normal. And that's across every type of customer that we see. But I think in terms of, I'll give you some of the examples, we provide the capability for anyone to actually build their own Netflix, basically their own digital video channel, and charge what they want. And obviously, since the pandemic, we've seen fitness studios and gyms use us. We've seen performing arts organizations use us because they were in lockdown to be able to still get their content out to their user base. And so many of them have actually dramatically expanded their customer base because now they're not confined to a physical location. And when we talk to them, of course, they're excited to open their studios back up and to perform live again, but they're not gonna sort of stop live streaming. They're not gonna stop streaming that content to all the other people out there who didn't previously have access to it. So I think video will be an and, it's not an or. You'll see a lot more hybrid use of in-person as well as video. And ultimately, I think this is a very, very good thing for businesses. It basically opens up a whole nother revenue stream and model for them, which is good, I think, for the economy as well.
Mm-hmm. So you're helping businesses not only produce videos, but set up like revenue models like subscriptions and things like that. Like that would, so I know that there's actually been, in other areas of media, we've seen this growth too. You have Substack doing newsletters. You have other companies really building tools that creators are using for their own distribution, as opposed to relying on like a YouTube for distribution or being kind of an influencer on an existing social media network. Can you just talk a little bit about how that market is emerging and like how how you see yourself fitting into those that range of companies that seems to be doing quite well in this era.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really fast growing part of our business, and we have it's called Vimeo OTT, over the top, which basically it's a product that allows you to go direct to your customers with your own video channel, and then you own the relationship with that customer, right? And you can monetize that content in more flexible ways, which, to your point, makes a lot of sense. You know, and it's not instead of YouTube, or again, instead of these social media platforms. It's more that there's certain kinds of content that you're going to put on those platforms for free, and you have an ad-based model. But now you can also drive people to your owned and operated destination. And in many cases, what we see is that there's sort of passionate niche fan bases around certain kinds of content where you might not get 10 million viewers, but you will get a subset who are willing to pay for that content. And so I think it's a very viable, sustainable model. We've seen an explosion in sort of the demand there. I think today we're powering over 2,000 of these channels. And I remember sitting a couple of years ago questioning how, like, maybe there could be 10, direct to consumer channels out there, and 2,000 our platform alone. So I definitely think this sort of democratizing the ability for these content creators, these brands, we're basically allowing many more people to become media companies. And I think there's an audience for that, and it will continue. The most interesting thing is just the diversity of the types of content that we're seeing. It really is everything from, fitness to faith to entertainment to sports to educational content. It's quite broad in terms of the range. And so I think that makes sense. It makes sense that there's certain content that people will pay for where you're better served, having a subscription model versus just relying on advertising.
Mm-hmm. I know you said that there's a wide range. Are there particular types of content that you think work particularly well for this sort of video subscription model? Or when you look at those 2,000 channels, is there an obvious leader in terms of the types of content that tend to gravitate towards that model?
There really isn't one clear trend. I think the key is, if you're monetizing through subscription, it obviously, you have to have, I'd say, two things. One, you have to have content that is exclusive, right? And that is, for whatever reason, is something someone's going to pay for, as against being able to consume something for free on any other platform. That's one piece. And then the other piece is it's a subscription model, which means it's not just about getting someone to first watch, they have to keep watching. So one thing that we've seen as a common theme is for these channels to be successful, they have to be constantly creating fresh content, right? And actually the way we think of it is, to have a successful OTT channel, you really need three things. You need content, you need marketing, and you need technology. And what we're basically doing is taking the technology piece and making it much simpler and more affordable so that these channels can put more of their budgets and time and attention on the content and the marketing, which is really what they're going to need to invest in to have a sustainable business.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. We have a couple of minutes left. And I want to ask a question from the audience, which is, how is Vimeo attracting new customers in developing countries and rural areas? And specifically, what's your strategy in relation to developing countries?
So we think that international expansion is a huge opportunity for Vimeo. We are actually more global today than not. The majority of our users are outside the US, and they are distributed all over the world. And so we are doing quite a bit to invest here, looking at our product, how to better localize that product, looking at our marketing, how to better reach customers and make them aware of our offering outside the US. And then our sales force. We've historically had our sales force very US based. We've opened up offices now and footprints in places like the UK, in Asia. You'll see us look at Latin America. So you will see us really kind of expand there. That ultimately, we believe that the power of video is global and universal. The needs of businesses, are fundamentally the same. time. We want to connect, we want to communicate, we want to grow our businesses. And so it's absolutely a big opportunity for us, and one you'll see Vimeo investing in significantly this year.